I'll begin with where I come from. So I belong to this clan, which is a ferociously fearless clan of Khokars, which was the first line of defense against all the invaders, like whether it was Alexander, whether it was Ghazni, Ghori, Aibak, even Temur. And you'll be very happy to know that the people, the ones who killed Ghori also were Khokars. 20 of them entered the camp, the war camp, and entered his tent and killed him. There was this Jasrath Khokar also, who was a menace. He was the biggest danger for the, dangerous Kafir enemy of Timur and Mubarak Shah. So we also have mentions of them in Mubarak Shahi. Then even Khusro writes about them, that they were not annihilated and they were a constant troublemaker. These are the stories that I heard as a child. I grew up with these stories. And my grandfather, they were the residents of Rasool Jhelum, which is in Pakistan now, district Jhelum. And I grew up on the stories, those of the horror that they faced during the 1947. And these stories were mere representations of what millions of people in that belt, which is now Pakistan, faced of arson, loot, rape, murder, and we know it all. And the saddest part is that the biggest mass migration, the biggest Holocaust in the world history, actually finds no mention in the history books, one. And two, it did not happen overnight. It was the outcome of a long conspiracy of over 1,000 years. The worst part is that the Muslims still date, they actually exist in those same tribal times, and they still hallucinate eliminating the Kafirs from the face of earth. So, Abhi, thoda I will try that I should, certain points I should put forth in Hindi. And why do they do that? Why do they exist? Because when we say a moderate Muslim or a soft or a peace-loving community, the fact of the matter is that it is the book that commands him to wage an unending war on the world to establish this theocratic state or the global Islamic state, which is a dream which was envisaged about 1400 years ago. So whether it was, from the Ghazwa-e-Badr till the present day Afghanistan, nothing has changed. They are absolutely clear about what they want. The SOP remains the same, and they harbor the same dream, the same intention, and the ruthless techniques also remain the same. We are absolutely aware of that. So a little bit of their history. I agree there are lots of books available. Lots of people have written huge, enormous material over them, but somehow it is not reaching, one. And another thing is that most people or the youth today isn't very keen on reading. Their attention spans are very short. So there has to be more material that has to come out, and everybody must be aware of it. It's the entire world. It is not just India that is facing that. So Islam basically is a political cult that is absolutely clear. And this was established by a man who called himself the messenger and who forced upon his tribe to call him or accept him as a Rasul. This man, the first thing that he did was the first war that he waged was called Ghazwa-e-Badr, which was on the 17th day of Ramzan, which is the lunar calendar of the Jews. And this first war is called Ghazwa-e-Badr, and it is, he waged this, it was unprovoked. और ये था on his own cousin client, the same family, the same Quraysh clan, who were very wealthy and also the custodians of Kaaba. So this was the first war, and this man in 8 years, that is 622 to 630, he waged about 64 such ghazwas. So why should the present day Muslims not emulate, or why should they not follow? Because the book has over 100 verses to convince a Muslim to do so. I'll just read a few. There's this verse 2.193 which says, Allah made jihad a binding duty for Muslims, whereby they must keep fighting until Islam becomes the sole religion of the earth. Another one, which is 911, which says, Allah has purchased the life of believers who must engage in jihad and slay and be slain, maro or maro, just to, and be constantly engaged in jihad, kyunki aapko ye karna hi hai. This is what your book says. Then Allah also commands all the Muslims to plunder the wealth of infidels in jihad. Aapko hak hai, adhikar hai. You can take their wealth as sacred booty. Allah ne aapko kya diya hai? He's inherited you unseen lands, और वो lands जो आपने कभी नहीं देखे, and the lands, homes and money of the kafirs. This is verse 33.27. And 8.41 says, and out of the booty that you acquire, जो आप लूट में से इकट्ठा करते हो, उसका 1/5 share जो है, वो अल्लाह ने assign किया है to the messenger, यानी the prophet himself. And ये जो मॉडल उसने बनाया था प्लंडर और इकोनॉमिक एक्सप्लॉयटेशन का, this is the most ideal example that all these Muslims emulate till date, and there is no two way about it. Jizya, Quran 20, the verse 9.29 says, Jizya shall be taken from the kafir. The economic model that I'm talking about should be taken with belittlement and humiliation. So jo dhimmi hai, he's supposed to not come on a horse, he's supposed to walk, he's supposed to stand while the collector sits, and the collector is supposed to slap him after he's received it, and so on and so forth. That is 9.29. Now, this also is absolutely clear. It is there in the history, it is there in their memoirs, that Muslim rulers in India, for example, took about 50 to 75% jizya as, produce, the share of the produce as jizya, which was the land tax, which was called kharaj. And as recent as 1946, also in Noakhali, when they converted about 95% of the Hindu population, they took jizya from them. In 1920, they actually, during the Mufla riots, there was this man called Kunja Ahmad Haji who created a Sharia control state in the region of Kerala, and he also extracted jizya from the people. Or he also sold the Hindu women to Arabs. Now, what if these are the examples that we have? What is halal economics? That also happens to be, in my opinion, the same, absolutely same. Just the modus operandi remains the same. The face of it changes. Now, also the book wo bhi clearly state karti hai, the prophet kept most beautiful women for himself. जो लूट में से बूटी में से उसका भी और जो बाकी थी, he would उनको वो distribute कर देते थे to his the raiders, और किसी को जो और बचती थी, they would sell them for horses, for weapons and all. So I will just read a couple of those also from his first biographer, Ibn Ishaq, Tarikh-e-Tehri. He says, spoils of battle, including women and children, were divided among the Muslims as a part of his share. And he says, as a part of his share, Apostle selected Raina as part of his beauty. So he would also select the most beautiful women. And again, he says, Apostle sent Saad bin Ziyad al-Sari to Najd with women of Banu Qurayza, taken as captive after slaughtering their men in the market of Medina, and sold them for horses and weapons. So women were also sold for, they were also a tool for generating money. This never-ending war that they have imposed on the world, the barbaric, regressive cult. So they what I feel, or whatever I have understood, whatever I have read and studied, there is, no moderate, soft, or whatever Muslim or peaceful Muslim. A Muslim is a Muslim because he must live within the framework of Islam. And if he doesn't, he's a kafir. So he must abide by Sharia. Simple words में अगर कहा जाए तो Sharia is the law of Allah. He has to follow the book. और उसको सुन्ना कहते हैं, उसको जो prophet के deeds को emulate करना. He has to ape, he's supposed to ape and copy whatever the prophet did. That is why, and that is Sharia. और अगर वो Sharia follow नहीं करता, तो he's no more a Muslim, moderate or peaceful or whatever. So, couple of quotes from that. 24.42, 34.1. वो कहती है किताब के क्योंकि उसको किताब भी फॉलो करना है, तो किताब कहती है कि heaven, earth and all on it belongs to Allah. Then 6.165 says Allah made Muslims inheritors of the earth. And 2.55 says he has promised Muslims to make them rulers of the earth. When the book is saying that, which moderate Muslim or a so-called peaceful Muslim would deny this? And if at all he says that it is misinterpretation, so let him only explain it to us. What do these verses mean? Let him come forward and say, no, this is not meant, this is not supposed to be this. And let him defy it. Let him stand up against it. Okay? So he's not a Muslim anymore if he does that. So people, now another example, people of all faiths would worship in the pagan shrine called Kaaba. So we also have his biographer, Ibn Ishaq. He's dedicated pages and is described how that was broken, how the Prophet himself, उसने कैसे सारे idols काबा में जो थे 360, उसने कैसे तोड़े, how they were broken, how they were burnt, और कैसे his son-in-law Ali stood on his shoulders to tear off the idol of their god called Hubal. So this also is absolutely clear in the book. Also by there are plenty of verses which have explained that too. Now, if I was to ask, if that is what he did, he broke that and he created the first mosque. Which moderate Muslim or which educated Muslim has ever objected to the breaking of anybody's place of worship, whether it was our Adityastan in Multan, when Sindh and Multan fell, whether it was Ram Janmabhoomi, the Babri dispute, whether it is Kashi Vishwanath, whether it is the Bamia Buddha, who has stood up against it? किसने उसके बारे में खड़े होकर के बोला कि this is wrong? Who has condemned it? So again, I'm just trying to shatter or break in the whatever little given time that I have, all the, with facts and figures, all the impressions or all the ideas that you have of a moderate or a educated Muslim. There are n number of educated Muslims today. We know that very clearly, who are terrorists. Yeah, so huge population also of the Muslims, who are, I'm really sorry to say that, unfortunately, are a parasite on the progressive societies, and they are not educated, and they don't even wish to get educated. Why? Because the book says so. Another quote. The book says, the Quran 7.157 says, follow the prophet who can neither read or write. Then you have 8, 175 and 176, 26 and 224, which says, Bukhari 8.175 and 176, poetry and music is haram, 26 and 224. Art, music, poetry, architecture, science, luxury, etc. are categorically prohibited, 43.33 to 35, 6.32. Who, and another one, which is Bukhari 7.49, says, who thinks that musical instruments are lawful, whoever believe among them that the musical instruments are lawful, will be destroyed and transformed into pigs and apes. So can you believe it, that this um, there is racial superiority. For example, the Turks, who consider themselves blue-blooded and who consider all the converts to be of low blood. And I will just read a little paragraph on how even they decided that the Muslims in India, when they were here, Ziauddin Barani in Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi writes that teachers of all kind are sternly ordered to teach nothing to the low-born dogs. वो कहता है इनको, अब you ask anybody, an educated Muslim, an uneducated Muslim, he will tell you हम पे 3 चीजें फर्ज है, नमाज, रोजा and hajj. So exactly this is what is written there. He says, don't teach anything to these low-born dogs. Nothing more than the rules of namaz, roza and hajj were to be taught. And he says, unko khali important chapters of Quran padna sikhao, or inko, because these low-born dogs are capable of all vices, they are worthless and they are shameless and they are dirty of blood. We can clearly see that the Turks till date staunchly are believe in racial superiority. And now let's talk a little bit about the peaceful versus the radical. There are n number of examples. I have spoken on your, I think for 4 hours we talked about Sufis and what they did. In short here, who are Sufis? The scholars, the Muslim scholars and the Muslim historians themselves say that Prophet himself was the first Sufi. Okay, one. Ali was, the second, and who was the head or the leader of what do you say? The Sufis, yeah. So it is absolutely clear that the Sufis participated in all the nitty-gritties of governance. They took share of loot of, and they accepted booty. They took share of booty. They accepted women as gifts. And till date, they play important role in power struggle. We absolutely know that very, very well. I will just, I will want to share a few things here with you about that, that most of these Sufis had come to India also along with all the raiding armies. And who were these people? Since, after the initial wars, when they would be actually sitting idle, when the wars weren't happening so much after the first initial ghazwas led by the Prophet, they would be actually just hanging around, laying in wait for, around the front lines of Bharat for, another next wars, etc. And so that is the time they also met wandering sadhus, and they had a lot of interactions with them. They learned a lot of things from them. They learned, breathing exercises. Some of them copied, the Kalandars copied some of the, comfort yogis. And so there's a lot of huge data about that as well. But in short, I would just like to tell you how these people converted Hindus when they came to India. So Baba Farid converted Hindus in southern Punjab, which is now in Pakistan. Bana al-Haq, उन्होंने कन्वर्ट किया वेस्टर्न प्लेन्स के हिंदूज को. गेजू दराज ने वीवर्स ऑफ बॉम्बे प्रेसिडेंसी को कन्वर्ट किया. माबरी कंदायत ने डेक्कन के जैन्स को कन्वर्ट किया. शाहजलाल ने शाहजलाल एंड जलालुद्दीन तबरीजी, उसने ईस्ट बंगाल के हिंदूज को कन्वर्ट किया. Then how they were a part of the wars or the invasions. Bahanuddin invited Iltutmish to invade India. Ajmer Sufis ने गजनी को, मोहम्मद गजनी को invite किया, and he took a promise from them कि उसका नाम always खुतबे में पढ़ा जाएगा on the Friday खुतबा. उसके बदले में he will come and invade India. So अहमद सरहिंदी ने declare किया भारत को दारुल Islam and Darul Harb both at war, and to be made an Islamic state. And he was the first one who had actually emphasized on jizya. शाह वली उल्लाह ने अब्दाली को इनवाइट किया. उसके बेटे ने बरेलवी को बनाया, और बरेलवी, he appointed बरेलवी ने about 80,000 jihadis. Mind you, in the 18th century, अगर 80,000 jihadi बनाए थे, तो what would happen? What would the numbers be with the kind of rate that they multiply in?